Put two people side by side. Same desk, same job title, exactly the same salary for 40 years. Person A does what the average American does. They save a little bit when it's convenient, they let lifestyle creep soak up their raises, and they treat their 401k like a piggy bank. Person B is an optimizer. They don't work harder, they don't get lucky with Bitcoin. They just save a specific percentage more of their paycheck and capture the employer match. Fast forward to age 65. The average saver ends up with about $200,000. That sounds okay until you realize it has to last 20 years. The optimizer? They are sitting on well over $1 million. JP Morgan analysed thousands of accounts and found that a savings rate difference of just 3% can double your retirement balance over a career. Same income, different habits. Today, we're going to walk through their entire lives, decade by decade, to see exactly where the average American goes wrong and how the optimizer quietly wins the game. I want to be clear about who we are talking about here. When I say average, I'm not guessing. I'm looking at the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances. The data tells us the median American near retirement age has about $200,000 in their retirement accounts and maybe $8,000 to $13,000 in cash. That is the baseline. The savings rate for this person hovers around 4 or 5% of their income. They aren't broke, but they are fragile. The optimizer is different, but not radically so. They aren't eating rice and beans in the dark. They are simply hitting a savings rate of 10 to 15% consistently, starting from their first paycheck. They prioritize the employer match as part of their compensation, not a bonus. The difference between saving 4% and saving 12% doesn't feel huge on a monthly budget. It might be the difference between a new car payment and a used car payment, but mathematically, it creates two completely different lives. We are going to simulate those lives now, starting at the starting line, age 25. Before we start the clock, I want to mention that the most expensive thing you can do is watch this video and not run your own numbers. My goal here isn't to lecture you, it's to show you the math so you can exploit it. If you appreciate a data-driven approach to money without the hype, make sure you're subscribed. It's the best return on investment you'll get for $0. Now, let's look at our two characters on their very first day of work. The common belief is that you can't save money when you're young because you don't make enough money. Our average character, let's call him Alex, gets his first job at 25. The salary is decent, but entry-level. Alex looks at his paycheck after taxes and rent and thinks, I'll start saving for retirement when I'm 30. Right now, I need to experience life. He saves 0% for the first 5 years. Or maybe he puts in 1% just to say he did. He ignores the company 401k match because filling out the forms is annoying, and he wants that extra cash for the weekend. This feels like a small decision. After all, he has 40 years left to work. What's the big deal about missing the first 5? The myth here is that the amount of money you save matters more than when you save it. Alex believes he can make up for it later by saving bigger chunks when he's a manager. That is the first, and perhaps the most fatal, calculation error of his life. Now look at the optimizer. Let's call her Olivia. She earns the exact same salary, but she knows the math of the rule of 72 and compound interest. She knows that every dollar invested at age 25 is worth roughly 10 to 20 times more than a dollar invested at age 65, assuming standard market returns of 7%. Olivia sets her 401k contribution to 10% immediately. If they make $50,000 a year, that's $5,000 going into the market. Her employer matches 3%, so that's another $1,500. She is effectively saving $6,500 a year. Alex is saving zero. Here is the brutal math. If Olivia saves for just 10 years, from age 25 to 35, and then never saves another dime, while Alex starts at 35 and saves the same amount every single year until he is 65, Olivia will still likely end up with more money. She worked for 10 years, he worked for 30, but her money had 4 decades to compound. By skipping those early years, Alex has dug a hole so deep that even a shovel made of gold won't get him out of it easily. The twist is that Olivia doesn't actually feel poorer than Alex. This is the psychological trick of the average mindset. We assume that saving money hurts. We assume that saving 15% means suffering. But studies on happiness and spending show that we adjust to our net income incredibly quickly. Because Olivia never saw that 10% in her checking account, she never built a lifestyle around it. She rents a slightly cheaper apartment. She drives a used Honda instead of leasing a new one. Within 3 months, her baseline for normal has adjusted. Alex, on the other hand, sees that extra money and immediately commits it to recurring costs: a car lease, subscriptions, slightly better furniture. This is called hedonic adaptation. Alex isn't happier than Olivia, he just has higher overhead. The average American isn't broke because they don't earn enough. They are broke because they treat every dollar of liquidity as spending power rather than capital. Olivia treats 15% of her income as a tax she has to pay to her future self. She doesn't feel deprived because you don't miss money you never saw. So, what is the protocol here? If you are starting out, or even if you are restarting, the move is to automate a savings rate that feels slightly uncomfortable. Start at 10%. If you can't do 10, do the match minimum plus 1%. Then, use an auto-escalation feature. Most 401k plans let you tick a box that says, increase my contribution by 1% every year. You won't notice 1%. If you get a 3% raise and save 1% more, you still get a raise. But if you let that auto-escalation run for 5 or 10 years, you wake up saving 15 or 20% of your income without ever having to make a conscious decision to cut back. The optimizer doesn't rely on willpower. Willpower is a finite resource. They rely on automation. They make the decision once, on day one, and let the system run the marathon for them. You might be thinking, okay, I missed my 20s, but I'm going to make way more money in my 30s and 40s, so I'll catch up then. This is the single most dangerous lie in personal finance. Because while your income is about to go up, something else is about to go up even faster. And if you don't catch it, it won't just eat your savings, it will turn your 6-figure salary into living paycheck to paycheck. We are now in our 30s. Both Alex and Olivia are getting promoted. Their salaries have jumped. The average mindset here is, I work hard, I deserve to upgrade. Alex looks at his beat-up car and swaps it for a $40,000 SUV. He moves from the apartment to a house that stretches his debt-to-income ratio to the limit. The myth is that high income equals wealth. It does not. High income just means you are a high-volume conduit for money to pass through. Alex feels rich because his cash flow is high, but his burn rate has matched it perfectly. He is earning more, but his savings rate is still stuck at that 4 or 5% national average. He thinks he is doing okay because he is making the minimum payments on his credit cards and putting a little bit into his 401k. But he has introduced massive structural costs into his life. He has confused ability to make payments with affordability. They are not the same thing. Let's look at the math of the upgrade. When Alex buys that $40,000 car, he isn't just spending $40,000. He is financing it. The average new car payment in the US is over $700 a month. If he invests that $700 a month instead, Over 10 years at 7%, it's not $40,000, it's nearly $120,000 of lost opportunity cost. But it's worse. By inflating his lifestyle, Alex has increased the amount of money he needs to retire. If you live on $50,000 a year, you need roughly $1.2 million to retire. If you inflate your lifestyle to live on $100,000 a year, you need $2.5 million. So every time Alex upgrades his house or car, he is doing two things. He is reducing his ability to save, and he is moving the finish line further away. He is running faster on a treadmill that he keeps cranking up the speed on. Olivia, meanwhile, kept her fixed costs low. When she got a raise, she kept living like she was earning her old salary. Her savings rate didn't stay at 15%. It jumped to 20 or 25%, accelerating the flywheel. The psychological trap here is social signaling. In your 30s, the pressure to look successful is immense. The average American looks around and sees their friends buying houses and taking nice vacations. Alex feels like he is falling behind if he doesn't participate. But here is the twist. The average person he is copying is broke. Remember the stats? The median savings is practically zero. The median credit card balance is hovering around $6,000. When Alex copies his neighbours, he is copying a financial disaster. Olivia realizes that wealth is what you don't see. Wealth is the car you didn't buy. Wealth is the house upgrade you postponed. It is a lonely psychological place to be because you don't get any external validation for having a fat brokerage account. You only get validation for the shiny object in the driveway. The optimizer has to be comfortable with being secretly rich while looking average, while Alex is comfortable looking rich while being secretly fragile. The protocol for the 30s is what I call banking the raise. It is the single most effective behavior of the optimizer. The rule is simple. Every time you get a raise, a bonus, or a tax refund, you pretend it didn't happen. If your salary goes up by $500 a month, you immediately set up an automatic transfer of $500 to your investment account. You continue living on your previous salary. You were surviving on it yesterday, so you can survive on it today. By doing this, you capture 100% of your income growth for your future self. This fights lifestyle creep aggressively. If you absolutely must upgrade, try a 50-50 split. Save half the raise, spend half. But the average American spends 100% of the raise, plus leverages it to borrow even more. Don't do that. Freeze your lifestyle in carbonite for as long as you can. So, we have the savings rate fixed. But there is another leak in the ship that sinks even high earners. I see this all the time with people who are actually trying to be responsible. They save money, but they put it in the wrong place. They leave it sitting in a checking account, just in case. This seems safe. It is actually a guaranteed loss. Let me show you why holding too much cash is almost as dangerous as holding none at all. The average saver, Alex, finally gets scared enough to build an emergency fund. He manages to scrape together $15,000. He feels good. He leaves it in his Chase or Bank of America checking account because he wants instant access to it. He thinks, this is safe. The stock market is risky. The myth is that cash is a neutral asset. It isn't. Cash is an asset that is guaranteed to lose value every single year due to inflation. If inflation is 3%, your $10,000 buys $300 less worth of groceries next year. Over 10 years, that purchasing power destruction is massive. By leaving his emergency fund in a zero-interest account, Alex is voluntarily paying an inflation tax. Let's run the numbers. Bank rate data shows the average savings account pays practically nothing, often nearly 0% at big brick-and-mortar banks. But the optimizer, Olivia, knows that high-yield savings accounts, HISAs, or money market funds often pay 4 or 5% depending on the Fed rate. If Olivia keeps her $20,000 emergency fund in a high-yield account earning 4%, she makes $800 a year. Alex, with his 0% checking account, makes nothing. Over 20 years, compounded, that difference is thousands of dollars of free money. But more importantly, Olivia invests her excess cash. She knows she only needs 3 to 6 months of expenses in cash. Anything above that goes into the market. Alex tends to hoard cash when he's fearful, accumulating $50,000 or $60,000 in a bank account earning dust, missing out on the market's 7 to 10% average return. That safety is costing him tens of thousands in lost growth. The twist is that Alex hoards cash because he doesn't trust the market, yet he often ends up selling his investments at the worst possible time. Because his emergency fund is thin or commingled with his spending money, when a real crisis hits, a job loss or a medical bill, he panics. If the market is down, he might liquidate his 401k or stop contributing. Olivia has a moat. Her cash reserves are separated from her investments. When the market crashes, she doesn't sell stocks to buy groceries, she uses her cash shield. This psychological buffer prevents her from interrupting the compounding process. The average investor consistently underperforms the market index because they buy high and sell low. The optimizer matches the market return simply by never being forced to sell. Cash isn't an investment, it's insurance against your own panic. The protocol for cash is strict. Calculate your monthly bare-bones expenses. Multiply by 3 to 6, depending on how stable your job is. That is your number. If it's $20,000, put that $20,000 in a separate, high-yield savings account. Do not keep it in your checking account, where you will accidentally spend it on a vacation. Once that bucket is full, every single extra dollar flows into investments. You do not hoard cash beyond the emergency fund. If you have too much cash, you are suffering from cash drag. You are letting inflation eat your wealth. The optimizer is ruthless about this efficiency. Every dollar has a job. Some are soldiers fighting for growth in the stock market. Some are guards protecting the castle in the savings account. But none of them are allowed to just sit on the couch doing nothing. We are heading into the home stretch, age 50 to 65. This is where the gap between Alex and Olivia stops being a chart on a spreadsheet and starts becoming a life-altering reality. And I want to warn you, the average outcome we are about to describe is not a horror story of homelessness. It's something much more subtle and much more common. It's the tragedy of just getting by after 40 years of working hard. We arrive at age 65. The average Alex is looking at his accounts. According to the data from Kiplinger and the Federal Reserve, he has about $200,000 in his retirement funds. He owns a home, but maybe he refinanced it a few times to pay for college or renovations, so he still has a mortgage payment. The myth Alex told himself was, Social Security plus my savings will be plenty. He forgot about inflation. He forgot about healthcare costs, which Fidelity estimates can be over $150,000 for a retired couple. Alex isn't destitute, but he is constrained. He has to watch his budget. He can't help his kids with a down payment. He can't travel freely. He is retired, but he is still stressed about money. He traded his time for money for 4 decades, and the trade didn't quite pay off. Now look at Olivia. Because she saved that extra 3 to 10% and captured the employer match and let it compound, she has over $1.2 million. Let's look at the cash flow difference. Financial planners often use the 4% rule as a safe withdrawal rate. For Alex, 4% of $200,000 is $8,000 a year. That's $660 a month. That barely covers groceries and utilities. He is almost entirely dependent on Social Security. For Olivia, 4% of 1.2 million is $48,000 a year. That's $4,000 a month on top of her Social Security. If Social Security pays them both $2,500, Alex is living on $3,100 a month. Olivia is living on $6,500 a month. She has double the income, double the safety, and infinitely more options. And remember, she didn't earn a higher salary. She just optimized the flow of the same dollars. The twist at the end of the life cycle is regret minimization. When interviewed, retirees rarely say, "I wish I had bought a nicer car in 1995. They almost universally say, "I wish I had started saving earlier." The pain of saving that extra 5% in your 30s is temporary and mild. The pain of being 65 and realizing you cannot afford to stop working is permanent and severe. Olivia doesn't just have more money, she has bought her freedom. The money in her account represents years of life she doesn't have to sell to an employer anymore. Alex is likely forced to work part-time or rely on his children, shifting the burden to the next generation. The optimizer breaks the cycle of financial stress. The average person perpetuates it. So, how do you become the optimizer? It is not about being a genius. It is a checklist. 1. Calculate your current savings rate. If it is below 15%, acknowledge that you are on the average track. 2. Fix the leaks. High interest debt must die. Cash drag in low interest accounts must stop. 3. Automate the pain. Set your contributions to hit the account before you ever see the money. Capture every single dollar of your employer match. That is a 100% return instantly. 4. Increase your savings rate by 1% every 6 months until you hit 20%. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be slightly better than average, consistently, for a long time. The gap between the average American and the optimizer isn't luck. It's a series of boring, small decisions that compound into a massive result. We often think of money as a way to buy things, but the optimizer knows that money is a way to buy control. The average American gives up control to their boss, to the bank, and eventually to the government via Social Security dependence. The optimizer retains control. I hope this comparison scared you a little bit. It scares me. The default path in America leads to a precarious retirement. You have to actively choose to step off that path. You have to choose to be the outlier. Run your numbers, check your savings rate, and start today, because the math doesn't care about your intentions. It only cares about your actions. If you found this breakdown helpful, give it a like so the algorithm shows it to someone who needs a wake-up call. I'll see you in the next one. End of narration. Fade to black.